everyone. Sorry I'm a little late this evening. I just got back in from Atlanta, and my granddaughter had a pageant, ran a little late, 10 minutes late getting started. Thank you guys for indulging me tonight. Setup's a little different tonight. It's not giving me a count. It's a little different. The count's over here tonight instead of over here. So it's my network has done a little changing around. They switched around on me, but yeah, I was in Atlanta this evening. So we were. My granddaughter had a pageant today, so we went to watch her do her pageant. That was exciting to do. And yeah, we did get caught in the rain. It was raining there, and did not rain on the way back, but we did get caught in the rain on the way there. So, but yeah, that's what's going on. Why I'm a little bit late coming in to the show tonight, but thank you guys for indulging me and waiting around and stuff. So, if you want to share, like the show, before we get going, we're going to talk a little bit tonight about some things that happened this past Friday on crossover day. So it was the Best Smile Award for the evening. It's the first time she ever did a pageant. Kelly, she did a dance, and she incorporated some of her, because she does gymnastics, and so she did some of her gymnastics in it. So she's she'll be 7 years old in April, and so she does gymnastics and she plays golf. So they did not have anywhere you could do golf in the competition at the pageant, but she is quite a good little golfer. So yeah, she did really good at in the past and everything, and she won the best smile. So you went, and she had a great evening there, and we enjoyed watching her. So it was a really good. We'll talk about some of the things that happened at crossover day. So we all know that the state had attempted to, the legislature was wanting to eliminate property tax. Well, they came short of that because they could not pass excuse me, they could not pass the resolution which would allow them to do that. But they did pass the accompanying legislation, HB 1116. And HB 116, what they were allowed to do after they modified this legislation is they're going to increase your exemption that the state gives you. Right now, the state gives homestead property owners. So this is actually going to impact homestead property owners. So right now, you get a $2,000 exemption from the state for homestead property. So what's going to happen? This passes the Senate, and I think it will pass the Senate. Every other year you'll get an increase. So for 27, 28, you're going to get 10,000 extra dollars. Then 29, 30, I think it's going to be $30,000 exemption. And beyond, it'll be a $60,000 exemption. So let me just explain what that means to like senior citizens. So if you're a senior citizen in Rockdale County, you already get your $50,000 senior exemption. Next year, you'll get a $10,000, which bring you to 60. 2 years after that, you'll get 30, which that'll take you to 90. It'll be the 50 plus 30, it'll be 80. And then in 31, you'll get the extra 50 grand, 60 grand plus your 50, it'll take you to $110,000 exemption. So seniors should fare very well in Rockdale County with the new exemptions coming down the pike. Then with House Bill 581 as something you also have here in 581, but the Senate version that makes everyone comply with 581 also passed. So and I look for that to also pass the House. So I think 581 will be the law of the land for everybody. So that means property tax values will not be able to increase more than the rate of inflation moving forward for anybody after next year if that legislation passes. But in Rockdale County, that's the law of the land. But then also with this HB 1116, it also limits the amount that property taxes revenue can be raised. So property tax revenues will not be able to be increased beyond the rate of inflation or 3%, whichever is greater. Now you got to remember, we had years where inflation was 6%, 10%, 11%. So on those years, revenue could be increased up to the rate of inflation. But, average rate of inflation has been 4 point something. So that's for taxpayers, that's a good thing. Now, for local governments and school boards and stuff, I think it's going to end up being challenging when you get to be around, because they also left the caps at the sales tax values, so they're capped. Then they did also. There's none of those fees and assessments that are going to be able to be attached to that either. So I think what'll end up happening. This is my opinion. Okay, I think county governments, city governments are really going to struggle. Board of Educations, I think, will struggle for a year or so until the state gets sued on behalf of education, because the Georgia Constitution says that the state of Georgia will provide an education to students and it'll be paid for by taxes. So I think when local school boards aren't able to provide everything that they're mandated to provide, and that's what you've got to look at. We are mandated to provide many things. You have very limited control over the budget. We have some control, like some personnel stuff we have control over. And when I first got on the board, our central office was extremely heavy. We were able to cut $4.5 million out of that central office last year. This year, we are realigning the enrollment to match with what our teacher numbers are. So that is going to reduce that personnel by $4.45 million. So those are going down. But every year, you've got mandates that come down and things you have to provide. So it'll be interesting to see how these things are funded once these things take place. Now, it is going to be a great benefit to taxpayers, I believe, these legislation that passed. And James, I do agree with you. I was very disappointed that only one HOA bill appears to have passed either house, and none of the legislation that had that limited fee tax bills, none of those pieces of legislation has passed yet. But they can still attach some of those to similar legislation. So we'll have to see what ends up happening at the end of session, what gets attached to other bills, and what goes on with that. So I think we're in a very interesting situation to watch what goes on with these pieces of legislation and how it's going to impact taxpayers. Not only taxpayers, I think taxpayers are going to come out okay with this. I think specifically senior citizens are going to end up coming out really well with this legislation as these additional reductions happen. As we get these additional excuse me, guys, my throat's bothering me a little bit. As we get these different parts of these legislations phase in, and these exemptions kick in, I think when seniors are up to getting $110,000 exemption in Rockdale County, I think that's going to be really, really good for them. And I think it'll work out really, really well. But yeah, I think we're in wait and see territory here, because I think we'll have to wait and see. Because let me tell you guys, trust me, when 2032 rolls around and your fire protection's not where you want it to be, and your police protection's not what you want it to be, and your other amenities that are provided by your local government, they don't have the money to fund it. We'll see what happens. I got a feeling I know what'll happen. It's just like when the county was going to cut some garbage service this year over to landfill, everybody went crazy over that. So, like I said, nobody wants to pay taxes, but everybody still wants those services and amenities. So, you got to remember, something has to give at some point. You can't, both can't happen at the same time, right? So, we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be very interesting as we move forward with this, and we see what impact these pieces of legislation have. I believe that they will pass. Both, I believe that, which, like I said, in Rockdale County, 581 is the law of the land here. It doesn't matter, but the rest, 70% of other school districts and 33% of counties and municipalities opted out. Well, that Senate bill is going to bring them all back in. And I believe the House is going to pass it. And then I believe the Senate will pass the House property tax legislation, which is going to give relief to property homeowners. So I think that's going to happen also. So I think we will have a new landscape that we're looking at here in Georgia as these things materialize. So that's my opinion about it. So you guys are a little quiet tonight. Do I still have all you guys in the chat tonight? Make sure my thingy here says we got all kinds of people watching tonight. So glad to have a decent and glad to have a good audience with me running late coming back from Atlanta for the pageant. So, but yeah, thanks for indulging me, guys. I appreciate all that, and I thank you guys for showing up. And we're here. Dan's here. Kelly, we have cut back on education management. I discussed that we cut $4.5 million off of that last year, and we're going to cut another 4.2, 4.5 this year. So you're looking at $9 million of that being cut. And then, Bill Campbell, thanks Donald Ferguson, qualified. We're going to talk about qualifying stuff here in a little bit. But, Bill Campbell looked at the Board of Education's budgets over the last 10 years. And Bill said he was surprised when he looked at it and saw that the average was only like a 6% raise annually, what the average was. And, and I told him, when you look at those raises on average, they're the mandates. That's where the mandates come from. And then we do give, some teacher raises and some step increases as we go along. And we did have and I told Bill, it was a 3-year cycle during COVID where I think they got top heavy at the central office. And last year we made strides in reducing some of that payroll, those employees. And I told you again, this year we're looking at reducing additional overstaffing. And like I said, in a 2-year time period, you're going to look at $9 million in reduction in staffing. So when you do that, you're going in the right direction. And I'll tell you, so how else do you end up cutting? And I'll tell you, here in the near future, you've got DeKalb, Clayton, City of Atlanta schools all talking about restructuring, redistricting and closing and repurposing schools. Well, stay tuned, folks, because you know why? That same thing is going to happen in Rockdale County. It's just probably 2 years down the road, because the Rockdale County Board of Education or school district has first did the looking in where we can cut personnel. So the personnel cuts are being made. Then you're going to look at that. Well, Charlotte, that's a unique thing, right? So when we've looked at what's going on with the classrooms, we're not utilizing and getting funded for everything that we can do, because if you don't have certain class sizes, you don't get the reimbursement for those teachers. And if you don't have X number of students in a school, you don't get reimbursed. You don't get paid to having the principal and assistant principals. So that's the portion of redistricting that we've got to look at. We've got to make sure that the kids are going to that we fill the classrooms up to the where they need to be, so we can get reimbursed with the education formula. And we need to make sure that the schools themselves are at the numbers to where we get reimbursed for the principals and assistant principals and such. So right now, I think we've been deficient in some of that, right? So I think we've had smaller class sizes and missing out of reimbursements. And, you can't continue to do that. You can't continue to subsidize that. At some point, you've got to make changes. And we identified, first of all, there's nobody, myself or Mr. Kenny, who's on here now, when we ran when he ran and I ran for the board, neither one, we had literacy issues, math problems, attendance problems, and all those issues are in the public schools. Rockdale County had probably the worst attendance in the state of Georgia. And we set out an ambition by half this year, and I think they're going to come close to doing it. You got to remember, if kids aren't in the classroom, they're not learning. And when they take those milestones, they're not going to test well. If they've not been there, they're not going to test well. They're not going to learn. So you can't teach someone who's not present. So I think this coming year, you'll see where we have worked on that attendance. You've got the kids in the classroom. You're going to see differences in those milestones in the next couple of years, because we've got those children being engaged and in the classroom. You've got the teachers that are motivated. So Charlotte, there's no new superintendent found yet. We're just in the beginning process of that. So we'll be engaging in that now through summer. And I think the goal is by August 1, because if you guys recall, we got Superintendent Chesser agreed to an additional month. So instead of June 30th, her last day was July 31st. So that's the thing about it. Judge Beals, Judge Beals appointed Tanya Bloodworth to the Justin's position. Tanya is a former principal in the school district, and she has worked in education. For my opinion, I think it was a good choice of the, what I understand, 10 people who were applied. That's worked. So, James, we are using the association to assist in that search, and that will be an ongoing thing, and getting interviews and such, and doing what we do. And then, I act in myself. I've told you guys all along, I hope we have no candidates that end up applying for that position, because I myself would love to promote from within. I'm a promote from within guy. I believe in that, especially coming from an industry, in the construction industry. A lot of times you have to leave where you're working to be able to get a promotion, because they don't like to promote from within, because being in the position you're in, so they don't promote. So me coming from an industry that has a bad history of that's the way that works. Superintendent Chesser told us that she would make sure we got through the budget cycle and through our accreditation. And just so you all know, Rockdale County Public Schools just did get accredited at a very high score, and so our accreditation is happened. So just so you know, that did happen, and we are very excited about that happen. And Justin Kinney just commented, she's a tremendous replacement for him, and she is phenomenal. So she did get Mr. Kinney when she was going to replace him. He did say he agreed we couldn't go wrong with that. And then go back to what the super. And she I think this year decided that she would go ahead and retire, and because I think the most she was going to stay would have been 2 more years. But we do really, or I personally am really grateful, and I know that and I assume the rest of the board is. I can't speak for them, but I have to do my disclaimer. Just my opinion. I am personally very grateful for the job that Miss Chester stepped in and did this past year for the Rockdale County school system with the policies and the procedures that she's put in place to improve our reading and math scores, and to help with our attendance, and just to help with overall morale. She has done a fantastic job, and that's the kind of leadership that I will myself personally be looking for in a new superintendent when we begin that interview process, and bringing people in to talk to about that position. So I mean, but that's the way I look. So I think it's a great doing, but yeah, I think that we've got a lot of stuff going on, and that's the way the cookie crumbles. So, and just to let you know, we'll talk a little bit about qualifying. So we do have a couple of people running for post 1 and post 2 Board of Education. We've got both incumbents running, and we have a challenger challenging each incumbent. So I know the names of everybody running in those races, but I did not get my list together for some of them. I'm not going to call anybody's name this week. We'll discuss that next week. Just so I have had candidates reach out to me, and we are going to start scheduling candidates to start coming on the show. But next week, we will talk about name the individuals who are running for each position, talk about those races a little more in detail. But we'll talk about names next time. So we do have challengers in both post 1 and post 2 Board of Education races. For the post board of commission race, we have 3 individuals plus, and that includes the incumbent running. We have, the associate state court judge position, which we have 2 people running in that, and Mr. Kinney, we all know, is running. He's on the show, and so I'll go ahead and mention that. And then we have another person running for that, and then we have for the chief state court position, Judge McCray was the only one to qualify, so he's the only one running. For the Superior Court judge, we have 2 candidates running, and then for our state representatives for House 92, we have 3 individuals running in that race with the incumbent. We have Angela Moore, I know, has someone running against her, and I'm not certain if Doreen Carter has someone running against her, and that's what we do. So since Jesus mentioned himself, I'll mention him. Jesus did qualify to run for the post 1 position. Now he mentioned himself. I'll mention against the incumbent Sandra Jackson Lett. So that one is that, and then I will mention the post 2 Board of Education race next week when I make sure I got all that lined up. But we will get all these things lined up next week and have a little more clear discussion regarding those races. And Donald Ferguson already had popped on the show. He did qualify. I'll go ahead and talk about the state senate. That was interesting, right? So because we have Tanya Anderson, incumbent senator, Donald Ferguson qualified, and then we had Sharon Henderson, who is suspended as a state House representative for COVID unemployment mishap, who had decided not to run for that seat, which she's suspended from, but filed paperwork to run for the state Senate seat instead. So I did find that a little interesting. I will speak about that this evening. I found that very interesting that occurred. But we'll see what goes on with that, right? So we'll see what happens with that court case and all that as all that happened. Yes, Sharon Henderson. She decided to run for that. So that'll be interesting to see what happens, with that. So if you remember over in Newton County, you had the former, he's a suspended chairperson, Marcellus Baines, and then you had Stephanie Lindsay, and she won one of the post seats. They got suspended after they won the election, pending racketeering charges. So we'll see what happens. I mean, so if you do get convicted of those, you can't serve. So we'll see what happens with Miss Henderson. Can run because she's not been convicted and doesn't hold the seat, just like Miss Lindsay and Mr. Baines did over in Newton County for those commission seats. So we'll see what happens to all that, right? So that'll be very interesting. But I did find that interesting. Baines and Lindsay. Yeah, that'll be interesting. So we'll see what happens with all that. I will be very watching all that closely to know what goes on with all that. So I find it interesting when we look at all this, right? How's it all going to shake out, right? So we'll see. We'll see how it's all going to shake out as we've got these next few months of campaigning rolls out, and we've got the state legislature will be in second session until April the 2nd. So we still have all that to go through to see if these pieces of legislation that made crossover day, if they become law, if the governor signs them, and how they're going to impact you, the taxpayers, and they're going to impact your local governments as they struggle to fund their budgets in about 4 years. And I'm going to tell you that's going to happen, guys. They are going to struggle to fund their budgets because it's going to be more. The cuts are going to be more than just the overspending. So that's crazy, right? It is going to be crazy. No, Renee, I'm going to speak my mind about it next week. I just wanted to talk about all that a little bit this week, and then next week really dig into it because I want to dig into all the races next week once I make sure I didn't miss anybody who qualified and all that such. So, but no, I do intend to talk about, all of it a little more in detail next week. But I do want to follow these pending pieces of legislation that made crossover day because they are going to be very impactful. They are going to definitely give you property tax relief, but they're also going to have some side effects you're not going to like. And we will convicted people are elected officials, so nothing new. That is true, Stacy. You're right, but you can't hold the office if they're convicted of these federal charges. So we'll see what happens. And there's a difference between being indicted and convicted. So being indicted and convicted and how it works are just a couple of different, the different scenarios of how that goes, right? So we'll see how that all plays out here in the next little bit. But we will definitely see how that rolls. So I am telling you what I'm going to do, guys. I think that I rushed back here to get on the show. Thank you guys for indulging me. I think we're going to call it a night. I'm going to go ahead and get off of here. Justin, I can explain that. Thank you, Justin. That's funny. But but we're going to get off here this evening, and I'm going to be on here next week and see how that rolls with it and everything. Okay, so we are going to get off of here. And hey, you know, guys, we've all know I keep this a local show and I don't get into the national stuff, right? And I like to keep it local and not go national, not go party, not go, you know, all that stuff. So I ain't even going there, right? I like it to keep it Rockdale County area, what's going on here. And I let all that other wild stuff play out on its own. If some of that stuff sometimes impacts us locally, we discuss it. But I really like to keep what we talk about here local. That's what I like to do. So, but guys, thank you. Good night, and I will see you next week right here on Speak Your Mind with Larry Cox, and we're going to talk about some local elections, local candidates, and your vote. And hopefully by then we'll have some people scheduled, and I can start letting you know when people are going to come be on the show, so you can make sure to save those dates, and prepare to watch these candidates talk with me about what they plan on doing for you, the voter. Thanks, guys, and good night, and see you guys next Sunday.